All right. Welcome. Um this video was something that I really really wasn't planning on doing. But I also realized that it was a question that David answered in his video. I'll try to make sure to link that video in this video description so people who haven't seen it can watch it and see for themselves and think for themselves about um, what they think about this. Um, Again, at first, I didn't want to answer this question. I really wasn't interested in answering this question. Um, but I want to approach this question a little differently. Mainly because for me, I don't think literature should have any particular significance. Um, and I guess I'll frame it this way: the moment you ask the why of something, like why science, why philosophy, why literature, you are seeking, you're asking for an argument of value that this so-called thing provides. And to me, at the end of the day, anytime we answer this question, all it really sort of resembles is what we already value within the thing that we're doing. Um, and for me, there's just not much else. I don't believe that literature necessarily performs a character evolvement. I don't believe that literature necessarily makes us more aware and so on. And because to me, I think those are the obvious sentiments, but those are also people that enjoy reading literature. Um, and so for them, there must be something of value when performing such an activity. Now, if we were to argue and say, what is literature? Um, it would be a different question. We would be trying to get perhaps at like the essence of what this thing performs. Um, but when we ask this question, why literature? It's an argument of value, just like anything else that is of this question of why. And at the root of it, it's because we sort of value a sort of understanding about what we're doing and why we're doing it. Um, so it's again sort of just layers of things that we value upon this question. Why literature? For me, it should be simple, and it's actually just my value. It's just my judgment on this. Completely, it should just be for the enjoyment of reading. There should be nothing else entangled within it. There should be nothing else enamored within the why of literature. It shouldn't be some type of moral or psychological increase or development. To me, those are more values that people want out of things. Um, but to me, those kind of arguments for literature are not really distinct from anything else that anybody else would say from arguing about something that they love, in my opinion. I mean, a scientist would argue that if people just believed in facts, the world would be a better place. If people just read on facts, right, the world would be a better place. There wouldn't be so much error and illusionment going on in the world. Or the guy that likes going to the gym, if people were just going to the gym more often, there would be less health problems and we would be more healthy and so on. But to me, these are values that the person holds. Um, and of course, the funny thing is, none of those values guarantees why one should do it in the first place. Going to the gym doesn't guarantee that you won't have health problems, right? There's just some things that going to the gym won't necessarily prevent. It may prevent a lot of things. Um, Same thing with following the science or trying to be more up to date on facts won't necessarily guarantee that you won't fall into certain forms of ideology or and so on. So all of these values don't guarantee anything about why we should do it. It's not a fundamental guarantee at all. Um, and a sort of side note, I've been spending a lot of time on BookTube. I've actually switched my reading sort of repertoire to go from um, philosophy to more literary fiction and genre fiction. Um, and as I'm watching more of booktubers and book talk and all these other forms and book Instagram and stuff like that, um, what I've noticed is that all these people read literature, and um, for me, it doesn't seem to. I think for these people, it's simply a sort of source of enjoyment and community and a sense of community, really. Um, but again, anything that we would gather from literature, and this is why I never like the idea or the argument of good literature or bad literature, because to me, good or bad is it's simply always and will be an interpretation of phenomena. That's all that morality is, an interpretation of phenomena, and it's what we gather and value from the interpretation of phenomena. Now, what might be an argument for literature is that perhaps it makes us more available to different interpretations of phenomena, but that's all that I would say. I wouldn't say that it makes you um, a better person. I wouldn't say that it makes you more open-minded. I wouldn't say any of those things. What I would simply say is that literature opens you up to more interpretations of the phenomena, of the same phenomena of which you encounter, and that's simply it. It doesn't guarantee a development in character. It doesn't guarantee anything, and it doesn't even have to mean anything. Um, it can simply be a source of enjoyment, and it doesn't have to do anything to a person's character. Um, but you could say that the availability is there when you encounter such things as literature. But if the argument is that literature is what avails you to more interpretation of phenomena as a human being, um, then to me it's already a little bit, it's we'd be hard pressed that to say that this is only what literature offers, and nothing else offers this quite as well. But the moment we say this is all that it offers, and it's not able to offer this quite like it offers it better than any other field, if we dare say that, then to me it's we're already inserting a value. We're already inserting a value of said thing. Um and that's it, and it could be for many reasons, but it's the same reason of why we would, talk about anything else that we enjoy doing. It's because we value it and we're trying to argue for it, and that's all that's being said at the end of the day. I mean, I don't see anything deeper than that. um this is why it's some days it's even pointless to even argue like why philosophy, because someone that asks why philosophy, most of the time this question is like they don't see the value in that field at all, right? um but there's so many contingencies on this question, culture and everything. Right now, literature is just simply more approachable than philosophy. Um, and I think that would just be it. It's just more approachable. It doesn't approach it in a sort of, like Davoud said, it doesn't approach it in sort of like almost maniacal way, um, or super egotistical way. Um, But again, it's even to say, egotistical or something. It's a value. It's an interpretation of phenomena. And so to me, we always collapse into this same collapse of interpretation, of an interpretation of phenomena, of fundamentally what we seem to value and what we have seemed to gather when we read about literature. Um, Fundamentally, I don't actually disagree with the people that say that there is something that literature does, but also at the same time, I can't help, um, and I don't want to deny that what it is simply always will be, um, just a fundamental value of what we have gathered, right? Um, and it's precisely because literature can escape. At least I wouldn't say it's more in abundance than anything else, more in excess than anything else, is the idea of interpretation. You can't escape that. Interpretation mediates this question of why literature, perhaps more in excess than anything else. Um, and it's a little bit, and it has a little bit more freedom because you're not trying to like gather data. And I think, the question of why literature should only resemble what one values, or what one has gathered to value. Because if we make it an argument, if we make it a sort of rhetorical convincing of why someone should do this, um, then to me it becomes the same thing as everything else, the same thing as everything else that every other person enjoys when they decide to do some activity. Why yoga? Um, why anything else? Why do anything else? I mean, the question of why really is one of value, precisely because you're a finite being and you only have so much time. You know, you only have so much time, so you have to choose. And it's because you have to choose that you can't just, you know, spend, you're forced to choose. Either I do yoga and follow science articles, and then maybe try to find some time for literature, or either I decide to commit my life to literature and just work. I mean, our whole lives are divided. So the fact that our lives are divided and they're finite and so on, we're forced to ask this question. We're forced to give value to something to make it seem worthwhile at the end of the day. It's because of our temporality, our finitude. We don't live long enough. Death is coming. So this question of why always seems and feels crucial and important to us, precisely because we have to choose and we don't have enough time to do all the things that people would argue for as to why we should do them. Um, and and again, to me, that's all that's ever really being said. It's this horror of finitude, and the horror of people possibly missing out on the value of the said things that we're doing. Um, but yeah, I think for me, again, the question to the answer to this question is not an argument. It can't be an argument because I don't think literature should be an argument for anything. Um, I don't think there should be any reason to do literature, and I don't think there should be any any value towards it. I think literature should only be explained in sort of the descriptive sense, in the sense that it simply seems to be the field, the one activity that seems to avail you to multiple access points of interpreting phenomena, right? And this is what people would moralize, perhaps, and say, well, this is why it makes you a more open person. But that's not necessarily true, because ironically, more open people are not necessarily open to closed people, to people that can't do what they can do. And now we could argue from here and say, well, one must encounter good literature. But again, we run into the same problem because good is a value that is within there. Good is the value that mediates between you and the thing that you're doing. And so for me, it's and we can obviously, I mean, to me, it's obvious that it's the one that mediates. The value is the one that mediates between you and the thing, because it's clear that if it was clear the literature had a value, we wouldn't have to discuss it, we wouldn't have to debate it, and we wouldn't even disagree or have to agree to it, because we would just simply know there would be something seemingly obvious and seemingly universal about it. But the fact that we have to ask this question, why, seems that we have to ask the question of value. And it's, to me, it's a link to time, it's linked to historical contingency, and it's because we want something to have an importance and meaning. And to me, there's nothing else. That's just my judgment and my interpretation of this question. There's just nothing else. In some ways, what I'm answering even branches out further than the question of why literature, just because it's the question of why versus what. The question of what is trying to get at the essence. It won't get at the value of a thing. And so it's very interesting that we want to ask the question of why in general. But yeah, these are my thoughts. And yeah, I mean, again, just summary. I just think it's it's an argument of value. And my personal judgment on this is that I don't think literature should be argued for at all. I think it should mean nothing. It shouldn't guarantee anything. And that's it. I don't. I guess because all I hear when I think about any activity that we love doing is a sort of moralization about the things that we value. And like that's it. And I for me, like in my eyes, I just want literature to be completely tainted free of that. Like I don't want it to be tainted by that stuff at all. Like I don't want it to. Because it doesn't guarantee any of it. All it does as a function, in my opinion, is it avails you to a multiplicity of access points from which to interpret a phenomena. And that's it. That's it. It shows you how people have interpreted certain interpretations, how people have given interpretations to certain phenomena. And that's it. That's it. There's nothing else. I think after that, if we add anything more to that, it's a moralization. It's a moralization of something that we already value, that we want to gather, that we want to get from literature. That's it. And again, that's my judgment and my sort of imposition of value upon that thing. But yeah, anyways, hope you guys are all well. And thanks to Vood for the question. I think it was really good. All right. Take care, guys. Bye.